You say maps. I say maps. And apparently, so too do a lot of people, since these numbers do not lie. When combined, there is no other universe of games I have played more than Paradox games, which is quite impressive when considering that I didn't truly discover them until about 11 years ago, which, oh my god, that is starting to be quite a long time ago. Where did the hours go by? Oh yeah, into Paradox games. But for a person who plays so many types of genres, from RPGs to shooters and online car football, why is it that Paradox games have come out on top? Indeed, in a world where you have big budget cinematic experiences like Total War portraying many of the same time periods, why do Paradox games with their map-centric worldview and map-based gameplay demand so much of my time? Well, I think it comes down to a very specific set of reasons. And if you are a Paradox player, I think you know what I mean. Because even though we like to give Paradox a hard time, we can't deny they know better than most how to supply that secret sauce. And let me tell you exactly which features Paradox games offer that I believe nobody else does in the same way. Feature number 1. The entire concept of depth. Depth is a somewhat vacuous term, isn't it? It can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, and is also very relative and dependent on what we're talking about. But in terms of strategy games, Paradox was arguably the studio to popularize the grand strategy genre as we know it. And there's more to that term than you might think. Because coming from Total War, there was always something I found missing. I was so happy in, say, Medieval 2 when mods introduced a feature which allowed your generals to become governors of cities, for example, or when your king received a simple crown ancillary for staying a turn in their capital. I was a fan of the family tree because we could map out our family and history in this way, and kind of see a linear progression throughout our history. This was peak strategy to me back in 2006, and despite always craving more depth, I was forced to be content with this stuff for many years. Of course, other game series like Civilization and Age of Empires offered even less in this regard in my opinion, especially considering how those series are nowhere near being grand strategy games themselves. Fast forward to 2013, your boy Andy boots up Crusader Kings 2 for the first time, and it completely shatters, completely blows my mind. An entire universe is opened before my eyes as I conquer England as William the Bastard, and not only have to manage family members, but individual titles. Titles that can shift between characters who essentially lead their own personal and political lives all across the map, from not just dozens of duchies, kingdoms and empires, but hundreds of them. I found how there were so many ways to go about conquest, whether through marriage, intrigue, succession or war, ways to forge entirely new de jure kingdoms and empires with new colors and coat of arms, and so many events that popped up that affected the game in various ways for an ultimately completely different playthrough every time, yet guided by my increasing skills and knowledge of the game. This depth is salient throughout Paradox's library of games, no matter their varying amounts of it, and is at the very core of their appeal. I mean, whereas CK2 drew me in with the depth of medieval dynasty and title management to run kingdoms where interesting things constantly happen, EU4 offers a world where the race to modernity and the ways to modernize and build your state is the aspect of depth. Whether we're talking through technologies, the effort to create a more centralized state, free from the shackles of powerful estates, building that economic and production or trade base, and indeed how it all coalesces around the concept of changing eras through this 400-year period of major changes. In the same vein, Hearts of Iron's depth comes from its military management and build-up, with the importance of administrating every type of gun, medical equipment, tank, airplane, down to the brand and type of every single one, and of course managing the tactics on the battlefield while dealing with the overarching politics of the times, both internally and externally. Similarly in concept but different execution, Victoria 3 shifts its depth away from the minute military details but focuses in on the production, trade, and population mechanics, all alongside the internal policies and grand politics. The level of depth here is simply just astounding, nowhere near replicated in any other remotely as popular grand strategy games or in titles with this level of production value and budgets. Feature number 2, and we're going to have to pay tribute to player choice and agency. If there is one single thing that encapsulates what a great Paradox game is, it has to come down to allowing the player to choose their own path, and their own branching paths to go down, and in turn create vastly different playthroughs and experiences even when they're playing the same character or kingdom for the 15th time. And there are a few important reasons for this. The first is that every Paradox game is based on a duality of mechanics. On the one hand, we have all of the options and mechanics open to the player, the countless levers you can use to affect your game, say whether you wish to enact a policy, raise an army, create a new title or type of state, change your relationships with other parties, invest points into technology X or skill Y, go to war, raise taxes here, reward this character over there, and so on. The second aspect is just as important, although perhaps not as obvious, namely the RNG, the randomness of gameplay. You see, every Paradox game sees random events popping up at regular intervals, sometimes completely random, sometimes affected or made likely by how your game is going and depending on your previous actions. But not only can the events themselves be based on chance, but the choices within those events are often directly tied to your current situation, offering a chance-based system that leaves you with choices where specific outcomes are more or less likely. The same goes for the outcome of battles and similar encounters, where the skills or points you have invested will often give you a better chance at accomplishing your goal, rather than an outright guarantee that things will go in your favor, or not. It's this double-edged blade of player agency and feeling like you're in this world that's out of your control that brings forth that valuable sensation of unpredictability, where you're desperately trying to hold on to stability through your own choices and mechanics, but need to account for what might happen if you're not careful. It might take some time getting used to, but once you do, it's like nothing else out there. Feature number 3, and it's the one that will absolutely rot your brain, but you'll still love every minute of that rot. We're talking the main character of every Paradox game after all, the map. Now the map in Paradox, or any strategy game for that matter, takes center stage. But what makes all the difference in the PCU, if you will, that's right, the Paradox Cinematic Universe, is the fact that the maps actually change and evolve, and somehow you become invested in that. At least I do. The use of map models like the god tier political map mode is essential in this regard, as it personifies every state in the world at any time, as opposed to the natural terrain vibe of the vast majority of strategy games out there. For the cultured, this is where the true addiction lies, where the true reason to return is kept, and where your dreams and imaginations are stored. In these vivid and ever-changing colors that feel so good to expand and contract. It's come to the point where Paradox players have favorite maps, because yes, different maps do offer different thickness and deliciousness, and the same goes for how states are colored in on those maps. I've made an entire video on maps in Paradox games, so make sure to absolutely not watch that under any circumstances, unless you do want to join in on the seductive Paradox map brain rot as well. You have been warned. Feature number 4, the multiplayer possibilities. So you know most other strategy games or other single-player games in general that also feature multiplayer modes? Well, the multiplayer in Paradox games are a bit different, because even though you might not be able to fill these spots, most of these games technically allow up to a staggering 256 concurrent players in the same game. Which, yeah, might crash your experience from instability, but it is technically possible. But for something a bit more realistic, you'll see Paradox themselves hosting grand multiplayer events with dozens of experienced players at the same time, which makes for an insane watch just knowing that so many of these players are human. Contrast that with essentially every other strategy game out there who might not even have multiplayer modes, but if they do, they might just be able to cram in between 2 and 8 players at a time. In other words, if you have a group of friends or mesh well with friends you find online, perhaps even just 2 or 3 or 4 other people, you'll have an online experience in these games that rival any other strategy experience out there. Especially when considering that, because of Paradox's commitment to real-time gameplay, you never actually have to wait for other people to finish their turns or the like. And in this way, you're always kept engaged, even with so many other people playing alongside you. In fact, because of Paradox's multitude of playstyles, diplomatic and intrigue options, the multiplayer possibilities become so much more fun because of it. Feature number 5, that soundtrack. There isn't much to say about this other than the fact that no strategy game series, or almost any video game series in general for that matter, have consistently delivered such a diverse and beautiful soundtrack as the main offerings of Paradox. And whether you're finding yourself in ancient Rome, medieval or early modern times, the Victorian era or indeed World War II, or far away in outer space, the music will remain with you and make your blood pump even though you're again looking at a map for hours on end. Feature number 6, the massive library of mods available by the simple click of a button. Every Paradox Grand Strategy game from Crusader Kings 2 onward has Steam Workshop integration, meaning you have everything from minor changes to game-altering total conversion mods at your fingertips, adding hundreds if not thousands of hours of playtime to your games for the cost of exactly $0. Paradox's commitment to modding and modders is admirable and is a major reason why these games are so popular and beloved. And finally, the 7th and last reason is the support Paradox devotes to their games. Paradox games are for the most part just beginning their journey when they are released, and developed and updated both for free and with paid DLC for years to come. Crusader Kings 2 saw 8 years of updates, EU4 has seen 11 years of post-release updates, and games like Hearts of Iron and Stellaris have both racked up 8 years too at this point, which again, what the hell is wrong with time moving by so fast? Please stop. In other words, chances are if you do play Paradox games even moderately early in their lifecycle, that you'll be experiencing an evolving game for years to come. An evolution that expands and fleshes out the experience, and that a pace other studios in the genre can't really seem to match. And to me, those are the 7 most important reasons why Paradox games are so special, why they keep making me come back, and why they have been so successful. Let me know what you think about Paradox games in general, and why you got hooked, and of course, make sure to leave a like in the video and subscribe to the channel. Oh, and make sure to join our Discord server as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers!